should be very familiar with that opening extract of Wolf Hall. We looked at it last week and we used it to kind of talk about moments of crisis and how we can use moments of crisis to capture reader interest. I think it's also valuable to look at this from a dialogue point of view, this extract. I think Hilary Mantel is just an absolute master of using dialogue, and what she's doing here is she's using her dialogue to help tell the story. In effect, this is kind of almost like a version of show don't tell, where instead of kind of telling the reader what's going on in the story, i.e. that there's a fight, that that poor Cromwell's been sick everywhere, she's using dialogue to tell the story. Okay, for instance, when she sings "Now Get Up," that's immediately telling us of where Cromwell is. He's on the floor. It's immediately telling us he's been involved in a fight. There's been an aftermath of a fight. And then later on, when Walter, his father, turns around and says, "That's right," Walter yells, spew everywhere on my good cobbles." That's Mantel using dialogue to help tell the story. So instead of Mantel saying, "and then Thomas Cromwell was sick everywhere," she's using her characters to tell the story. It's a very clever technique, and it's a technique that I would advise you to start using. If you want to tell the story, get one of your characters to do so for you. I think the second thing that's interesting about this extract is it's beginning to tell us a little bit about Walter and the character of Walter and what kind of character he is. Obviously, he's a very abusive, he's a very physical character, he's a very self-centered character. I think a very revealing moment is when Mantel injects this bit of dialogue. She says, look now, Walter bellows. He hops on one foot as if he's dancing. Look at what I've done. Burst my foot, kicking your head." So this little bit of dialogue is telling us that Walter is somebody who cares very little for his son, and actually cares more about his own clothing and his own attire. So this is a very solipsistic character. Okay, I hope you've got that. So two things that the dialogue is doing here in this opening section. Number one, it's helping tell the story. It's stopping us from giving us us kind of relating or relaying to the audience what's happening in the story. We're using characters to help tell the story. The second thing that we're using dialogue for is to help tell us about characters. What kind of characters are they? You know, how do they speak to other people? What's their relationship with other people like? What kind of class do they come from? What are their interests? What are their passions? What are the things that make that character tick? Okay, so I hope you've learned quite a bit there and understand that. The next thing I want you to do is I would like you to have a look at this Raymond Carver story. Raymond Carver is the great god of short stories, really, and he really revolutionised the short story format in the 1950s and 1960s, and he continued writing up until the 1970s, really. And Raymond Carver was very good at telling stories in which not a great deal happened, but stories in which characters had epiphanies or moments of realisation, moments where they have internal realisations rather than external things happen to them. And he was very popular for a lot of years. So what Raymond Carver is very good at is carving out subtext. He allows there to be a very quiet little story that bubbles away in the background. And this next story is a prime example of that. It's a story in which a couple have obviously lived together, they've drifted apart, and that the wife realises this through a conversation that she has with her next door neighbour. So what I want you to do is to have a look at this story and pay close attention to the dialogue in it. What is the dialogue actually doing in this story? What is it saying about the character? What is it suggesting her thoughts and feelings are? Have a read of it and I'll come back to you in 5 or so minutes. Okay, bye bye.